Yes, yes, you are. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. It's Tuesday, the 15th of July, 2025. We are streaming on Rumble. We are streaming on X. We are streaming on YouTube. We are streaming on that social media platform that begins with a F, but we don't like to say the word. And we're streaming at the mothership, WYAB.com. You know, we are living in the United States of offense. It's all anything that matters anymore. It's just who's offended by who's saying what. And we're all angry about it. And this revelation came to me last night as a small group. We had a great small group. I think we had 25 or 26 people there from 3 or 4 different churches. And it was just a great fellowship. And really opened my eyes to not just my personal life, but how I present the radio show here. And this just comes across my brain. It just, a person's decision makes him slow to anger, and it is his glory to overcome an offense. And that's what I really want to talk about for this first whole segment, is about all the stories that I talked about yesterday or in the past week, and how it's been important to make sure that, you know, we cover the news and we look into it. We just don't give a surface level overview. We go into an in-depth breakdown of the story to make sure that we understand why certain things are happening. But I don't know if you are looking at it like this, but as I look at this, when I critically watch the news, I'm seeing that they're not necessarily so much reporting the story, is trying to manipulate the words that they're putting across the screen or coming across your the radio or the TV to get you to feel emotionally charged. And I can tell you that this is certainly true with the topic. It's obviously the topic of President Trump's presidency, the Epstein files. People are really charged up. They take offense to it. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. It just you're still offended. It's just whether you lean one way or the other. And it seems like we've been talking about it. Been talking about it with Brother Rick and Brother Willie and some of the other unknown texters on the text line. Oh, if you want to be part of the program, the number is 601-879-0002. And the text line is open at 601-879-5060. But as we talk within our community, some of you on the phone, some of you through text, some of you through email, the one thing that I feel is that we're all definitely passionate about what we're experiencing, and we're so headstrong, we're so critical, we're so strong in our faith and our belief for whatever it is that issue is. And like Rick and I were talking over text a couple days ago, you know, it's like, what are they hiding? What is it that they're trying to get to? Because just the enormous stories that have broken, it's just like a ping pong ball since about the second week of June. The stories that have come out, it's just very strong, enormous news stories. The news cycles were getting bigger and bigger, and it was just building and building. It's like, how much more sensational can the next story be? You got to get the next biggest story. And I sit there and I think about it, and I'm like, is it just that they're trying to pit one side of America against the other side of America? We have tons of stories about this. One of them, I'll just take this wasn't even necessarily on my radar today, but it's a really good story that kind of presents what I'm thinking and shows how my logic is going. Everybody knows that um, President Trump said no more supporting Ukraine with weapons. And the military industrial complex does not like that. And so now Trump announces that NATO is going to start spending 5% of their GDP on weapons from the United States. And if Europe wants to send all their old Patriot batteries and missile defense systems to Ukraine, that's okay. They can go send them all that stuff, and Europe's doing with whatever they want. They're just going to go buy the new stuff from us. And it's a simple wash the hands. It's nothing rocket. No, there's no rocket science involved in this. This is just how we're getting rid of our old stuff so that the new stuff can come in, that we can keep the machine pumped and primed. And if you're a Trump supporter on one side, you're like, hey, we're not selling any weapons to Ukraine. I don't care what's going on. That's NATO. We can sell all we want. And then there's those of us who are like, look, that we're not selling directly to Ukraine. This is just another proxy war. This is just another Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria or Yemen or fill in the blank. And it moves us psychologically into a bad headspace. It moves us to a place where all of a sudden now we care less and less about the things that we thought we cared in, and we become more cynical. We become jaded. We lose our happiness. We lose our joy. I see it in some of the texts. We talked about the one yesterday. Andy, I've never voted in my life, but I believed in Trump, and now I'm disappointed because of Epstein. And the truth of the matter is that as this story unfolds, and a lot of you who hear me talk politically know I say sometimes we got to be patient because we don't see everything that's unfolding. I sometimes see the pattern and I can see where it's going to go. I don't necessarily see how it's going to get to that point, but I know it's going to get there. And it angers some people sometimes because I'm like, sometimes we just got to be patient. But at the same time, I totally get it. That there are many of you, especially across the state of Mississippi, who went head in for Donald J. Trump, and you don't understand what's happening with the Epstein story right now. And all I can say is I think there's a lot of moving parts, some of which we see, and many of which we don't. And the best evidence I have that things are going in the direction that I feel we would want the direction to go is the Turning Point USA event this past weekend in Florida. Who were the top speakers? Who is what everybody was talking about? Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, Benny Johnson. I almost said Benny Thompson. Benny Johnson. All ripping on Epstein. There was only one speaker at the Turning Point USA event who did not talk about Epstein, who was actually cheered ferociously, who was absolutely appreciated, and everybody was on page with Tom Holman, our ICE director. And if you haven't seen his speech, you should, because there's a heckler in there. And Tom's the only guy who can come up after a pastor and get away with some spicy language. And you're sitting there going, well, it's ICE director, is it? And he had really good points to say. But my point to saying this is that even if the machine doesn't want to talk about a certain subject, the people are what's keeping this story alive. And I have truly very little desire to continue to rub salt in the wound or inflame you all. I don't need to fire this audience up. I like to think that we're the the smooth operators. We can see what's happening in front of us, and we don't get amped up. We don't run on emotion. Running on emotion is dangerous. We look at what's in front of us, and we make the decisions, and we push the ball forward. We matriculate the ball down the field. And we're actually doing a very good job of that. I genuinely believe it. By the responses I'm getting from the text right now, from people that I'm talking to, eh, it was amazing last night. I met like 5 or 6 new people last night, and 3 or 4 of them was like, "Yeah, I listened to you on the radio. That's incredible. I didn't know you were gonna be here." And to be able to have conversations with them and have them tell me their perspective on the stories that we're talking about here at WYAB, it's refreshing because it's giving me the feedback, and I wanna give that feedback to you all, that we are creating a group of people out there who is not just informed about the current events, but is actually figuring out how to take action to push and manipulate the political bubble in and around Hinds County, Madison County, Rankin County, Copiah County, Simpson County, Warren County, Yazoo County, Madison. Did I say Madison County? If I didn't, I'll give you twice. You need double help up there in Madison. You got Canton. And that's my personal goal for everybody here, to be so not just informed, but be able to push your local politicians, to push your local influencers, to get us to a position where we can have real impact in our cities, in our state. And when we were talking about offense, it just seems that that's what gets everybody initially sprung into action. We're going to talk about it today. You should see some of the books that are in our Department of Defense schools. I tweeted it out. Be careful. Don't look at that tweet with your kids around, because it's got some craziness in there. And when you look at that, you're like, how can that be in schools? And then the general who's overseeing the school says, we can't do it. It's congressionally mandated. We can't remove them. It's what's mandated by Congress and the Department of Education. Which leads us into an awesome Supreme Court decision that happened yesterday. Let me try to pull that one up here. Supreme Court allows Trump to lay off nearly 14,000 or 1,400 Education Department employees. And this is really awesome. It was a 6-3 decision, and it was completely in favor of the conservative point of view. Trump can act as the commander-in-chief, the chief executive officer, and within his own executive department, he can do what he pleases. If he wants to fire a bunch of people, he can fire them. If he wants to hire a bunch of new people, he can hire them too. What's really amazing about this is that the liberals got smart on the Supreme Court, and they didn't let Miss Ketanji Brown Jackson write the dissent. They didn't let her anywhere near that, and that's a disappointment. That makes us sad here at the Andrew Gosser Show. We like it when she's out there. It's so great to have her on the court, because she is telling the American people exactly what the left is thinking. And it's not that we even take offense from that. If anything, we're grateful for that. I am grateful that she can put into words, sometimes it's a word salad, let's be truthful, but she can put into words certain things that we think that the left is thinking, but they won't say it themselves. But Ketanji will. Justice Ketanji Brown will. And unfortunately, yesterday they didn't. The whining and moaning on the left is real. They have taken offense. The layoffs will likely cripple the department. Someone wrote, his name is Yon. Judge Myung Yong in Boston. A federal appeals court refused to hear put a hold on the order, and it went to the Supreme Court. And even those on the left are saying it's a huge victory for the Trump administration. So we are having wins out there, but we are having wins out there. And I completely agree with this audience that we cannot and should not allow to the base, MAGA base specifically, take our eyes off the prize, off the target, which is the Epstein files. And there's a lot more to say about that, but I'm running a little long. We're going to take our first break. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9. We will be right back. All right. We're doing good. First intermission. Great to see everybody online. I really appreciate it. We'll be back. We're going to keep this going on the Supreme Court decision. Oh, yeah. It's the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We are talking about being offended, taking offense, and how that's impacting the American thought pattern right now, how it's affecting us here in Mississippi when we look at stories. And this is coming from, I'm trying to find the ultimate source on this. I'll get it right here in a minute, but to kind of prove the point that I'm getting at, where we are so upset about one thing and we're just throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I want to try to run this scenario by us all and help us to get over that initial disappointment, that shock, that offense with where the Epstein story is right now. You know, we'll have people say, "I trust Trump, but I'm upset about Epstein. I voted for Trump, but I'm upset about Epstein. He is securing the border, but," and speaking of securing the border, I do want to get this Tom Holloman um, bit in here if I can find it real quick. Where did I put it? I guess I won't get Tom Holloman right now. I've got the clip somewhere. I'll have to find it. But it's a salient point. We're cracking down on all these illegal immigrants, but I'm upset about Epstein. He's rescued over 150 children from child trafficking, shut down the border, but yes, Trump pardoned the J6ers, but I'm offended. He's cut taxes, but I got the Epstein thing. I just can't get it out of my mind. This one's silly. He's cut the cost of eggs in the grocery store, but gas prices are down, but here's a good one. The United States of America is absolutely positively running a surplus for the first time in forever because of tariffs, but he's ending DEI hiring across federal government, but President Trump promotes religious freedom, but I'm offended. Do you see the buts here? He's brought home American hostages, but I thought this one was funny. He's got NATO and Europe calling him daddy, but so many of my best friends, my closest political friends, people who I trust, people who I can sit there and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think about this?" Are so fixated on this one issue that they're losing sight of all the other victories. And that is a scheme of the devil. You just have to be sidetracked on one thing, and all the good stuff you're doing, you'll lose your joy, you'll lose your rest, you'll lose your peace, you'll lose your happiness. Am I saying that we should walk away from politics and not stay engaged? Not saying that at all. I'm just saying that we have to operate from a new level. We have to take the higher road. We have to see what is being used against us, the scheme that the enemy is using against us, the plan that people who would wish us ill harm are using, and then figure out how do we succeed with what they're putting in front of us. This does not mean that we don't have righteous anger. This does not mean that we don't go full force against the pedos in our school districts or the online sex traffickers or the thieves or the crooks or the illegal immigration. That doesn't mean any of that. but what it means is that we operate from a place where we're not angry, where we can think clearly and make logical decisions. Because I'm telling you right now, um, MAGA MAGA world is definitely stretched. I said last week, this wasn't just a little ding in the armor, a scuff. This is like a big, big dent. And if we're not careful, the whole thing can spiral. And some people say, Andy, this is Trump playing 5D chess. He's 3 moves ahead. He might be. But are you? I know for me personally, I want to keep the pressure up. I do not want to go the way of, and I'm going to say some big names here. I am no way lambasting them, harpooning them, discrediting them, or otherwise telling you that I'm upset with their tactic. But their tactic is not my tactic, and I know my heart is good. So when I see Charlie Kirk or Benny Johnson or some of these other big time podcasters out there saying, "Oh, I'm just going to let this settle. I'm just going to let this sit," and the base is going nuts. I think it's important that from where they're sitting in their positions in the power structure and in the command structure, maybe they do need to be a little bit more quiet. But all of us who are here on the ground, so many of you who I know who listen to the show, who helped us get President Trump on the ballot this past presidential election in Mississippi, I know you're fired up. You tell me. And quite frankly, I think you should stay fired up. Just make sure your heart is good. You should be going out there and letting everybody know how screwed up this is. Do you have personal relationship with your school board members? I don't know. But if you don't, maybe you should start that. I mean, use this energy constructively in a way that's going to help you make your personal station stronger so that you'll have a stronger voice for the kingdom here on earth. I don't know anybody on this planet who approves of what Jeffrey Epstein embodies and did. I don't know one. And it doesn't matter whether you're left wing, right wing, upside down. That just seems to be the one issue that almost 99.5% of the people out there agree that harming kids is not right. Now, some will have issue with the parenting styles and all that, but when you see acts of depravity like that, when that's being subjected to the American public, that's going to have a real quick response. And look, we're not stupid. We've been having this floated in front of us for over a decade, almost 2 decades. 2007, I think, was when he was finally arrested the first time and sentenced. Maybe it was 2003. I don't remember. Somebody will correct me, I'm sure. And we've been waiting. Like this one texter, I don't know your name, and I should, but you're demanding your pound of flesh, and you're not going to stop until you get it. I get it. And maybe in your world, that's where you're at. But if you're demanding that, I'm just making sure that your heart is right. Because at some point, you just become so jaded. You become so cynical. You just become burned out. And we cannot afford to have that. Our country is too precious. We're the greatest country on this earth. It was because of how our founding fathers wrote the Constitution and the belief system that inspired them to do it. And we all know that's Christianity. You're listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9. We'll be right back. Mm, mm. Hello, we're on a break.
Hi, is this Andrew?
This is.
Hi, Andrew. This is Leah Bosch. Listen, this does not have anything at all to do with what you're talking about. I agree with everything you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you a question. Kim Wade talks about this patch that is so wonderful. It makes people feel good. And I can't find out what it is. He talks about it. He does not say what it is, where you get it, or what kind of doctor do you go to.
I'll ask him.
And huh?
I'll ask him for you.
Well, thank you very. Let me tell you something. I have called that radio station till I'm blue in the face, and nobody answers. It's always some leave a message or whatever. They never. And I told them, I said, I want to know what this stuff is. And look, I'm 80 years old. I need some energy. I need something to make me feel good.
Okay, do me a favor. And I want you to text me at 601-879.
I've got your text. You gave me your text number. I've got your number in my phone.
Text me your name real quick, and I'll text Kim. I got to go because we're getting ready to come out of break.
Okay, it's Levice, LEIGHPICE, 601-201-5909.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
No, thank you.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's only in America, specifically WYAB.com and WYAB, where you can listen to the Andrew Gosser Show. Miss Lee, I know you called in during the break. I need you to send me a text so I can get you that information. You gave me your number, but I miswrote it down, so hook me up there. And I promised everybody that we would be talking about this Tom Holman blip, and I found it. I just realized I clicked on the wrong link, and I apologize for that. So let's play it right now.
He laid off 20 U.S. citizen employees. That happens across this country every day. No one hires an illegal alien, I truly believe, out of the goodness of their heart. They hire them because they work them harder, pay them less, and undercut their competition. So this is about American business. This is about making sure U.S. citizens stay employed. This is about keeping wages at a certain level and not decreasing wages. It's the right thing to do. And there is a way, as Chad said, to bring people in legally. Congress needs to address that.
And Tom Holman, he's an older guy. He's retired twice from ICE. Trump's brought him back both times. And what he's saying there is true. What he's saying there is true. They're all complaining that, unfortunately, where a lot of these illegal aliens are working is in the food business, whether that be processing plants in California or processing plants right here in Mississippi. All those chicken processing plants, that's a target-rich environment for ICE. And the truth is that they can pay an illegal alien a lot less money than American. That American wants to be paid more money for it. And our system of government is always trying to get the best deal. Our corporations are always trying to get the best deal. And unfortunately, we've created this ecosystem, this cycle of hiring illegal aliens into these positions. And then you look at the videos that you see online. And again, it's offensive. It causes anger and outrage. These masked people, civilians, they may or may not be citizens, throwing bricks at ICE vehicles, and ICE vehicles just running away, not even returning fire, not even coming back to arrest them. Trump said we can go after them, but we are at such a wonderful point in our country that we are actually starting to turn so many things around. I don't want us not to let the Epstein thing go, but I don't want us to get so fixated and gripping those pearls so tightly that we lose everything else. And we are sophisticated enough to be able to do two things at once. We're smart enough. We've proved it time and again, whether it be through past wars, past economic downturns. There was at the Turning Point USA conference, there was a couple of really good speeches. One of them was by Kristi Noem, and I want to play this. This is about 57 seconds worth of sound. Let's go.
See, life is all about perspective. I think we're crippling our children in this country. We're crippling our children by doing everything for them. Somehow we've taught the people in this country that hard things are bad and that we should avoid them. I would tell you hard things are good. They teach us who we are. They give us confidence. We need a world filled with problem solvers, and that's exactly who you are. You see, there's people every single day that go out and risk their lives so that we can stay free. There's men in our military, women that serve in our armed forces, law enforcement officers that keep us safe, keep us free. We don't know what hard is. We have no idea what sacrifice is compared to what some people are making for us. So
she's so right. You know, my wife and I, after small group last night, we were watching this guy who goes around the world trying different foods, and he was in Uganda, Africa. And we were watching them prepare the food. And I just looked over at the sweet pea and said, you know, if the USDA was in there, they would shut down that whole market for unsanitary food preparation. And, I mean, it's third world. Shout out, though, to that one cook who was wearing the Arsenal shirt. That's right. Up the Gunners. But it got me to thinking, you know, we've got it so good in America that we don't even know what tough is. And then something like this comes down where we get this political situation. We don't know how to act. We're just like, oh, we're so frustrated. And there's just so many indicators of how good we have it and yet how soft we are. As we know, many of us, here's another good piece of information, but in Mississippi, they call it the education miracle. We're doing all this great stuff. Do you know that since 2020, graduation rates are up over 4.5%? Yet our SAT scores to get into college have dropped by over 130 points. Soft. Does that high school degree mean the same thing it did back in 1990 or 2000? I don't know. I don't share these things to just make you feel bad. I share these things because there's so many different moving parts to this, and I think that's honestly part of the bigger plan to keep us so divided in spreading our attention spans over so many different subjects that we need all of us out there. Some of you are so interested in the education piece of the pie, and you need to be empowered to go forth and conquer. some of you are so interested in the economic side of that. And we need people that can call into the show and say, hey, you know, it says today that inflation went up by 0.3%, but it actually is better than what was forecasted. But if you read all the news articles, it sounds like it's doom and gloom. And I'm grateful I have people out there who are able to say, hey, go to this story, look right here. This is the important piece of information, which we'll get to in the next hour for sure. We need people who are tenacious on the president, following all the good stuff he does and the bad stuff too. We need it all. It's truly going to take all of America to keep us going on the right track. And I'm actually feeling pretty good about it. I'm realizing that I can operate in a place, and I hope you can operate in that place with me, where we can sit there and look at all this screwed up stuff and still be able to go out there and have a change in our community. And we've got a lot of stuff to talk to, including in the next segment here. We're coming up. Mississippi Today, rate decision on hold as Wingate tracks down Siemens Fund. You know, they're trying to raise the water rates in Jackson, but it just seems to me, according to the Mississippi Today article, that they can't find roughly $50 million of that $90 million settlement. They know the lawyers got their money, but we can't find the rest of it. You know, and who was the mayor during that time again? Oh yeah, we know who. You're listening to Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. Hmm. And we are back on the Andrew Gosser Show, 103.9 WYAB. Look, if you're listening online, if you're listening on Rumble, if you're listening on X, if you're listening on Facebook or YouTube, would you just smash that like button, share it with a friend, help out the stream? That'd be awesome. I'd really appreciate it. And if you're not following me on X, where you can see the stories that I'm using to prepare the show for the day, it's just at Andrew Gosser, at AndrewGasser. That would be awesome. I'd really appreciate it. Mississippi Today. Rate decision on hold as Wingate tracks down Siemens funds. In 2020, the city of Jackson settled a lawsuit with a German company over years of faulty metering for water services. While about a third of that $90 million went to legal fees, the lawyers are going to get paid. They're going to get their money. City officials couldn't immediately see where the rest of those funds went during a status conference on Monday. Man, that's a lot of money. So you're 90 minus 30, that's 60 million. Well, where'd that money go? City Attorney Drew Martin said he was working to comply with the subpoena Wingate issued last week, looking for an accounting of those settlement dollars, adding that those would have been details he'd have them within a day or two. He couldn't say for sure where the money went. He said about 50 million was spent within a few months, with about 8 million remaining as of 2022. This is why local elections matter. And what Mayor John Horn is walking into in Jackson, there is going to be a lot of work to be done. But I'm telling you what, as someone who was an administrator, who was in charge of a very multi-million-dollar budget, I would have these numbers available almost instantaneously. My front office and our budget was good. We were within, I think, a nickel of a multi-million-dollar budget, and I still wanted to find that nickel. And this just goes to show you what happens when we take offense and we just start checking out. How many of us moved out? And I know I can't say this for me because I moved to Mississippi, but there are many of us who moved out of Jackson. Clay moved out of Jackson, couldn't handle it anymore. He's still doing his thing, but he's like, I don't want to live there. It's too dangerous. It's not my thing. But how many of us have just completely checked out of Jackson and, hey, it's going to do what it's going to do no matter what happens. We're just going to let it roll. I find stories like this absolutely fascinating and terrifying at the same time. And I want to find out where that other $50 to $60 million went. It seems to me that they seem to know where about 58 million of it went, but there's still $2 million outstanding. I wonder what companies were ordered to do the contracting for the water department during that time. And the story in Mississippi Today just goes on to say that, without them moving federal dollars around and allowing Mississippi or Jackson Water to use different funds to pay contractors, contractors could stop being paid money from Jackson Water finances. And that is frightening. And I know it's a lot of money, and it's going to take a lot more money to fix the water in Jackson. But I just continually think about, we've got these billions and trillions of dollars going overseas. Why can't we try to help our own states? And I'm not necessarily even asking for a federal bailout, but some type of program to be put in place to where we can hold these people accountable and get us on the path to sustainability. Public utilities should, I mean, maybe we're going to a new way where in the future, we don't have big public utilities anymore. Maybe they are privately funded. maybe we're going to a place where things are just going to be where we don't have to necessarily use um, a public education company or electric company to go out there and provide our power. Maybe it will be solar. Maybe it will be some type of nuclear. Maybe it will be transmitted, much like our phones. I don't know. You listen to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be back. What's up, chat? That's a Sweet Bee's favorite song, Pachelbel and Zeke Cannon, so I always try to give her a little rub.
And I know the people on the other side of the, see that desk, that Resolute desk? Unfortunately, he used it before me. You know, we have our choice of 7 desks. They're all beautiful, but I chose the Resolute, and so did he, unfortunately. But the people on the other side of the Resolute desk, I know them. Lisa, the whole group, and they're no good. They're sick people. And I guarantee you, he knew nothing about what he was signing. I guarantee it. Look, the auto pen, I think, is maybe one of the big.
Yep, we're going to talk about the auto pen. I genuinely thought that they weren't going to be able to go back, but after rereading that New York Times article, Biden basically admitted that the only real pardon that he signed was Hunter Biden's pardon. Everything else was auto pen and done by word of mouth. No real way to prove that Biden approved of that. So there might be an opening there, which would be absolutely awesome because then we could go after Fauci. All right. Getting our stuff lined up for next segment. Yes, yes, you are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show. It's Tuesday, July 15th, 2025. If you want to call in and be a part of the program in the second hour today, it's 601-879-0002. The text line is open, getting some spicy ones. 601-879-5060. Look, we're streaming on Rumble. We're streaming on X. We're streaming on YouTube. And we're streaming on that Facebook platform that it begins with an F. And I said the name, but I don't like saying it at all. We're also streaming at the mothership, WYAB.com. Look, we're if you're not following or if you're not listening to us on the radio, if you're listening to us online, if you wouldn't mind liking and sharing the stream, I'd appreciate it. I'd also appreciate a follow. During the break, I was teeing up the sound, and I just want to get into it because yesterday when I was speaking about the pardons, I didn't think there was a real legal way to like overturn the pardons. Once it's signed, it's signed. But there's a lot of really good rationale that's coming out now, and I'm kind of cautiously optimistic. I'm not falling for that offense that we were talking about the first hour. I'm cautiously optimistic that something might happen. And here's the president talking about it. This is from the Daily Signal.
Look, the auto pen, I think, is maybe one of the biggest scandals that we've had in 50 to 100 years. This is a tremendous scandal. And I know the people on the other side of the, see that desk, that Resolute desk? Unfortunately, he used it before me. But, you know, we have our choice of 7 desks. They're all beautiful, but I chose the Resolute, and so did he, unfortunately. But the people on the other side of the Resolute desk, I know them. Lisa, the whole group, and they're no good. They're sick people. And I guarantee he knew nothing about what he was signing. I guarantee it.
That's President Trump talking about, I'm not going to call it like pencil gate or auto pen gate or whatever, but it's something that's really starting to build up a lot of steam because President Biden went out in the New York Times and basically talked about how he thought he had he knew about every pardon that he was signing, even the ones that were done in the last minute as they were driving to the inauguration for President Trump. And he was on his way, and he said he knew about them all. But in that interview, people said that President Biden, actually opened up more questions than he actually closed answers. And that to me is somewhat hopeful because there are a lot of people who got pardons from President Biden who deserve to be investigated and looked at. And as many of you know who are regular listeners to the show know that my top 2 are Anthony Fauci and General Milley. Those 2 individuals do need scrutiny for their actions. One with obviously the COVID disaster that plagued not just America but the earth, and what was Anthony Fauci's role in that, and then General Milley and his actions with the withdrawal from Afghanistan, as well as communicating with the Chinese outside of without permission from the President of the United States. I mean, as a military person, you just don't do that. You don't sit there and talk with the enemy like that. And it's Fox has got this article out. It says Biden, and I'll tweet this out here momentarily. But Fox has got this article out. Chief of Staff reportedly gave approval for auto pen pardons on final day in office. I approve of the use of the auto pen for the execution of all of the following pardons by Chief of Staff Jeff Zients wrote in an email. So there's an email trail to all of this. And that's the great thing. We can sit there and say, look, this is not coming from President Biden. This is coming from the Chief of Staff. And the Chief of Staff said, oh, well, the President told me I could. Well, you got to prove that. Because there is no proof. And in another piece of sound that I don't have, but as I was doing show prep for today, you know, the auto pen is supposed to be used for like signing letters to people who write the president letters asking for a flag or saying that they want to be president of the United States one day. That's what the auto pen is for. And President Trump went into great detail how there's a whole section of the White House that does nothing but answer letters. And depending on how you write your letter, you'll get a form letter that's auto-signed by President Trump. And when we think about it, when we look at when President Trump signs an executive order or when he pardoned the J6 prisoners, you didn't have to worry if that was auto-penned or not. He's got that big felt tip marker, and he's got that big ostentatious signature, and you know it. I find it very interesting to me, and it gives me great relief and, quite frankly, peace that I know President Trump, for all of his legislation, executive orders, and whatnot, he's making sure that he makes a spectacle out of it, and maybe that's just because that's President Donald Trump and the art of the deal. And he's saying, "Look, for all this correspondence and other rigmarole, that is what the auto pen is for." I do think President Trump is also correct in saying, we wouldn't have had this 100 years ago. We didn't have the auto pen. And I feel President Biden has really diminished the power of the pardon. It's always going to be suspect now. And as more news agencies continue to report on this and talk about the auto pen, I think it's going to bring up not just President Biden's pardons, but President Obama's pardons in the past. Did he know about all of those? I find it interesting that all of the big people who are really starting to sweat about this are always linked back to Anthony Fauci and Mark Milley, General Mark Milley. And now Fox is actually quoting the New York Times and saying, "Look, it wasn't President Biden who said it, it was the Chief of Staff, Zients. I approve the use of the auto pen for execution of the following pardons." Of all of the following pardons, not just of the following pardons. And now, of course, everybody's trying to reach out to the Chief of Staff. What's his name? Zients. Mark Zients, I guess is his name. And he's not responding to emails. But this is what happens when you have transitions of power, when you're going from a bad administration to a good administration. You're seeing it at the national level with President Trump and President Biden. You're seeing it at the local level with Mayor Horn and Mayor Chokwe. It's a mess. And people want solutions quick. I mean, people in Jackson, they want their water bill to remain somewhat constant, and they want clean water. And they're not wrong for demanding it. But in the case of Jackson, when you had 8 years of just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, there's going to be a cost there. There's going to be pain there. And there will be pain in the United States too. There is absolutely no one here. Democrats still haven't called the station and called to talk to debate me about President Biden's mental acuity, especially in the last year of his presidency. There's just no Democrat can do that. They can't make an honest decision about that. They can't make an honest argument and have a conversation about President Biden's mental health in the last year of his presidency. Some would say his whole presidency. And I still get people sending me videos of President Biden walking off into the sunset, walking off the stage the wrong way, walking into the White House, tripping up the stairs of Air Force One. I appreciate you showing me the video evidence, but that's stuff that nobody can argue with. Nobody can make that argument. So if he can't do that, what makes you think he can pardon all these people? It's almost like a jailbreak, just opening up the floodgates, and just like they allowed all those illegal aliens to come into the country over the 4 years, they're allowing all these people who were getting away with a lot of preemptive pardons. I've maybe they have happened in the past, but I've never heard of it. I never heard of it once. Biden issued a series of preemptive pardons on his final day to officials to safeguard them from retribution from Trump. You know, when I left the highway commissioner's office, I never worried about nothing like that. When you're operating in good faith, and even when you're making unpopular decisions, when you're grounded in the law and your principles, you're not worried about retribution. And you know, quite frankly, with everything that's going on with the Jackson Water, they shouldn't be worried about retribution if they know what they did with the money and they spent it wisely. This Judge Wingate's subpoena shouldn't be a problem for anybody. But it just seems to me on a particular side of the aisle, they're more worried about covering their tracks than actually getting to the bottom of stuff. And that's not to say that Republicans don't do the same thing, because we are not clean as the wind-driven snow Republicans. There's a lot of us out there who are doing a lot of things that perhaps they wish they didn't. I've got this piece of sound from who some people say they should be our Attorney General. This was Matt Gaetz, and I just found this piece of sound fitting because of the current situation that the United States is in. Listen to this. This is then Congressman Matt Gaetz.
And when it comes to how those raise money, I take no lecture on asking patriotic Americans to weigh in and contribute to this fight from those who would grovel and bend knee for the lobbyists and special interests who own our leadership,
Yep.
who have, boo all you want, who have hollowed out this town and have borrowed against the future of our future generations. I'll be happy to fund my political operation through the work of hardworking Americans, $10 and $20 and $30 at a time, and you all keep showing up at the lobbyist fundraisers and see how that goes for you. I reserve.
If you could see the look on those Republicans' faces behind Matt Gaetz as he was dropping that bomb, it wasn't even anger, it was horror. Because we all know that's how this operation runs. And those same lobbyists who are funding the Republicans, who are funding the Democrats, who are funding Joe Biden. If you think about it, those same lobbyists really didn't do too much to help get Donald J. Trump elected, did they? That was the $10, the $20, the $30 people. Those were the people like you who was like, hey, Andy, how do we get Trump on the ballot? Well, we got to go out and get signatures. Okay, send me the invitation or the form to get the signatures. And you come back with 20 of your neighbors signing to get President Trump. We all funneled that together, put it in, helped out with Frank Bordeaux, the Mississippi GOP chairman, and Ty Martin. We got it all wrapped together, and he was on the ballot. That wasn't me. That was you. That wasn't Trump. That was you. And there are a lot more people like Matt Gaetz out there who are starting to bubble up now. Yeah, Andy, but President Trump, but Epstein, but you're listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. But And welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We're just locking in, and I just got this alert on X, and I figured I'd share it. This is from the House Homeland GOP. Tomorrow, Mississippi's very own Michael Guest will be leading a hearing with testimony from three individuals, Allie Hopper, Julio Rosas, and Mike Howell, all talking about sex trafficking minors over the border the last 4 years and how we can prevent that and what we can do to take action in the future. And that's just something I'll be listening to. I know there's a lot of people who support Michael Guest, and I know there's a lot of you who don't. And this is just one of the ways where he's reaching out saying, hey, listen. So, hey, if that's up your alley, I know that there's a lot of people who support Trump, but this whole Epstein thing is kind of getting you fired up. This is one of the ways that they're actually going after it. It might not be the straight line route that we want to. And that brings me up to I've got an awesome guy who always is giving me stuff. And I just want to read some of his texts that he's sent to me today, because I think he feels like many people do in this show. And it's righteous anger. It's not necessarily offense. It's righteous anger. But he goes, Trump's covering for the pedophiles, child trafficking, and I wash my hands of Trump's covering of the dark side. And I think with what is out there right now, if you're fired up about that and you have that point of view, I can't say that you're wrong. I cannot say that, this doesn't look like Trump is capitulating. But I would also say, what's Trump's past performance on certain things? And take in all of the facts that are being, I'm not going to say leaked out, because I don't like leaks. Anytime I hear leak, I immediately honestly discount the source, especially what the left has done. But I am not convinced that this is the end of the Epstein story. And I think it's important, people like you, dude, you keep on out there and thrashing around and doing it your way. Like I tell candidates sometimes, Andy, I'm thinking about running for office. And I always say, I'll never tell you what to do, but I'll always tell you what I think. And what works for Andrew Gosser might not work for you. And I know that people would say, oh, Andy, you've gotten soft as you've gotten older. I definitely think some of my positions and tactics have evolved. I watched a $20 million train transportation bill / grant / ordinance go up in smoke over a text. And because of the text was worded a certain way, literally. And after witnessing that, I was just like, my goodness, I need to watch my tongue. Even if I'm not going to vote a certain way or something, I need to make sure that I say so in a way that's gracious. Because I might have to come back in a year and get that vote for a different transportation bill. Or because I'm no longer a county board member, I'm a highway commissioner, and I need to get a bridge built that was washed out. And there's nothing wrong with being firm and being standing on your principles. And for those of you who are going to do that, I just want you to know I support you, but I also see what could be happening. And it might not. It might turn out that we're being sold a bill of goods, and we're going to end up allowing some bad people to get away with it. I'm not so naive to think that that's not what could happen. But I'm telling you how this Justice Department has moved under Trump with the things and the successes that we have had. I'm willing to give it a little bit of time, a little bit of patience to see what develops and see what unfolds. I would say that, Dan Bongino was threatening to leave the agency. Some said Kash Patel was threatening to leave the not the agency, I'm sorry, the FBI. They're both on duty as of right now. People who are connected to the administration saying that, look, things are coming. They're not going to be necessarily the way that we think they're going to get there. And this is just my opinion. I'm just one guy behind a microphone, blessed by God to be given this opportunity. I'm grateful for it, and I never take it for granted. I hope that comes through the radio and through the show prep. But, you know, if we sit there and we just start throwing the baby out with the bathwater, saying, "Oh, we're going to let it all go away," I think that does a complete disservice to us. And things like this, you know, we're actually having. Think about this. We're actually having hearings now on the illegal immigration and child trafficking, and where that's going to lead. I think that's a good thing. We were having hearings on January 6th, and Benny Thompson was chairing it. And oh, by the way, you know, that auto pen story, that affects Benny too. Imagine if his pardon is not there. Do you believe that the Trump administration and the Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice would go after that? I think I would rather not be in Benny Thompson's shoes than in them. We've just got way too much good stuff going on to really drill down on some of the other stuff that's happening. So I want to switch gears now and talk about the media, because you know how much I love the mainstream media, and I think they're doing such a fantastic, great job that we need to continue to support them. And this is coming from Adweek, same source I always use. Every couple of weeks, I go back there and check. And this is the latest free article that's out there. If I pay the subscription, of course, I can get the most up to date. But we have to be frugal here at the Andrew Gosser Show. And the next big purchase is going to be being able to clip up the podcast and over the radio show and be able to crunch it down and create some shorts and be able to get that content out there for everybody. But this is coming from the week of June 30th, cable news ratings. 4th of July holiday weekend leads to lower viewership. Now, the first thing is we've got lower viewership over the 4th of July weekend. And that was the weekend of the floods, of the signing of the great, big, beautiful bill. These would normally be big things that were being followed by news networks, that were being followed by whether it be Fox News, CNN, or MSNBC. And one of the questions, texter says, Andy, you keep on saying the demo when you're talking about this. And this is from a couple weeks ago, the last time I talked about it. What is the demo? The demo is not the demonstration. It's the demographic. The key demographic that they want are people from ages 25 to 54. That's where the economic engine of America is perceived to be. I think it might be a little bit bigger than that. It might be a little bit better or larger than that. But this is the interesting thing. Out of all the millions of viewers in prime time, the demographic was incredibly small. And I'm sitting here making sure that I have these numbers pulled up right. Total viewers for prime time, Fox News, 2.3 million. I'm going to say 2.398 million. So let's just call it 2.4. MSNBC, 741,000 people were watching MSNBC compared to 2.4 million on Fox. And CNN actually cratered to 526,000 people. So think about this, conservatives. The two most leftist news cable networks, MSNBC and CNN, had roughly 1.25 million people watching, where Fox News had 2. Interesting for all three news networks. Fox News had 300,000. CNN had 111,000. So even they had the least amount of viewers out of any of the networks, they had more than MSNBC, which is the real story. MSNBC had only 70,000 people in the demographic. Left-leaning news sources are absolutely being crushed. They're falling apart. Even though CNN had less total viewers than MSNBC, they still had more than the demographic, which says a lot because, you've got the Jen Psaki whole rigmarole going on over there. And, CNN might have found something with Scott Jensen and Abby Phillip show. Everybody just tunes into him to see what he's going to say. I think that America is moving in the right direction. I have the optimism. I have faith that we're actually going in the right way. I'm not taking offense to all of this craziness that's out there, how they're trying to pit Republicans against Democrats and conservatives against MAGA. And we've got to get beyond that. We've got to see above that. You're listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. And we are back. The Andrew Gosser Show. This segment is going to be the military segment. And I got to make sure we are staying up to date. A couple weeks ago, we were talking about the USS Nimitz going out on her last cruise. Nimitz aircraft carrier, the first Nimitz class aircraft carrier. And it's going to be around for a lot longer than we thought. Why? Because the United States shipbuilding industry is completely neutered, and it can't build ships to save its life. A lot of people don't realize this, but back in the late 90s and early 2000s, it was decided that U.S. shipbuilding wasn't going to do so much commercial. It was going to be more focused on military shipbuilding. Frigates, destroyers, cruisers, submarines, and aircraft carriers. And at that same time, we went from a change of philosophy from building Nimitz-class aircraft carriers with basically 1960s and 70s technology, which is where that all really stemmed from, to building Ford aircraft carriers, which have a lot more powerful nuclear reactors. They have electronic catapults instead of the steam catapults. Their landing systems are all magnetic now, much more robust. And then, of course, you have the electronic suite, the radars, the countermeasures, defensive mechanisms, stuff that I honestly don't know about, but even if I did, I wouldn't really talk about it. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because the first Ford-class aircraft carrier, the Ford, is now underway on its second deployment. But the thing is it left for its deployment and couldn't receive its aircraft carrier crew. The airplanes couldn't land. The resting system was not up to snuff, and they actually spent a week off the coast of Virginia getting it all fixed up so they could receive the air wing and then go on its cruise. Not only that, but the next ship in the line for the Ford class carrier, the USS Enterprise, has been delayed. It was supposed to be commissioned next month in August of 2025. Not so. It's not going to be till August 2027. And I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's not the Enterprise that's next. It's the John F. Kennedy. The Enterprise is 2 years behind that, and then the Doris Miller is 2 years behind that. So that's CVN 79, 80, 81, and 82 are all delayed by at least 2 years. Nimitz was supposed to decommission next year or start decommissioning. There's no way that we can decommission that. We're already almost at 10 aircraft carriers. We're really at 11, but depending on how you do the math at any given time, there's at least 3 in long-term refurbishment, 3 that are recovering from cruise, and then 3 getting ready to go on cruise, and 1 that's on cruise. So all the carriers are accounted for. And it is going to really stress the United States Navy aircraft carrier, which is 4.52 sovereign acres of U.S. territory anywhere around the globe. Power projection ashore. Aircraft carrier is a great thing to have. It's one of the first questions that's always asked by leadership. Where are the aircraft carriers? They used to ask where the AWACS are, but those are going away now. And that's a whole nother argument in and of itself. But this is something that is truly plaguing the United States Navy. And it's not just the aircraft carrier program. It's their frigate program. Their new state-of-the-art frigates are behind schedule. The Virginia-class submarines are behind schedule. And the new destroyers are also behind schedule. Our small boy fleet is hurting. And yes, they do what they call flights, different versions, like after so many years, they'll upgrade it with new, better electronics, and then they'll bring the old ones in and upgrade them. it's to the point to where we can't keep upgrading. The hulls are just tired. And I know that's what someone said about the Nimitz, and the hull in and of itself is fine, but the electronics that in the systems that we're putting into these new aircraft carriers, it's almost time for a new hull. I don't think you could actually even recycle an old hull and put in like the new magnetic catapults. I don't even know if there's been a study about that, but that almost might be worth looking into. And when this story came across my feed, I was just like, my goodness, me being a Navy guy and all, had an interesting career. Even the Air Force sent me back to the ship. God bless them. Local stories. This is coming from the Magnolia Tribune. Nissan delays EV production at Canton plant until 2028. Elon still got the lockdown on their electric Tesla vehicles. It's great to see that other companies are coming into the EV space, and I think it's really important. But at the same time, these companies that have been legacy companies, gas combustion, which there's nothing wrong. We need all the gas combustion vehicles we can get. With the less electronics in them, the better. Basically, what Nissan is saying, that a memo from the company cites recent slowing in EV demand in the United States. And what I have to ask is why? Is it because people don't want to be green? Are we not consciously aware? Or is it because the Democrats have just beaten up Tesla so much that the EV brand in general is no longer what it used to be? Magnolia Tribune does a great job, and this is from Frank Corder. I think a big part of it might be that people bought EV because of the tax credits and not necessarily because they wanted to save the planet. Under the new law, the $7,500 tax credit for buying or leasing a new electronic vehicle will be eliminated, along with the $4,000 used EV credit at the end of September. So there were a lot of rich people who were buying these EV vehicles and being able to deduct extra money off of it. And they were taking advantage of that deal. And that's going away in the big, beautiful bill. I guess that's just part of the complication between Elon and Donald going head to head. I mean, Elon might be the smartest rocket scientist with the largest privately owned company in the world, but that's nothing compared to the power of the U.S. government and the president of the United States. And I'd say that whether it was Trump as president or Biden as president or DeSantis as president or as Vance as president or whoever, it's always going to be that way. And speaking of Elon, that new third party just is continuing to fizzle out. I haven't met anybody yet. And I have asked around with a lot of my friends, especially those who are more, dare I say, libertarian or just ultra MAGA, like just completely so hard to the right, even, they're not even getting behind that third party. And it's still too soon. Elon can always pump in a couple $1 billion into it and just watch it go. But I think that the EV gem is out of there. And then my last local story, and then I'll get to user comments in the next segment. Mississippi Lottery generates over $113 million in revenue for the roads, education in fiscal year 2025. $113 million in discretionary funding spent on the lottery. I'll be truthful. Sometimes that super jackpot gets up to like 600 million or whatever. I'll buy a ticket. That is a lot of money. And it just says the Mississippi Lottery has made its final monthly transfer for the state for the fiscal year 2025 with a transfer of $9.2 million, bringing the total amount generated to $113 million. And that goes to, again, roads and education. I know a lot of people don't like the lottery. I don't like it because that's $113 million in discretionary funding that people could have spent on clothing, shelter, food, life's necessities, but they decided to go buy a scratcher. They decided to go hit that Powerball. It's a bad deal eventually. I remember when it came to Illinois back in the late 80s. I can remember watching the first lotto drawing for $6 million, and the money generated was big. But the people who are betting big on the lottery are the people at the lower end of the economic scale. And it's really, that's where all this money's being generated from. The rich, they might go buy a scratchy, they might go buy a Powerball ticket, but they're not investing weekly, daily in it, like studies have proven in the lower class has. And that's going to be something that as time marches on with the lottery, it'll be interesting to see how those numbers go. But this year, 113 million. You're listening to the Andrew Gossler Show on 103.9. We will be right back. Doomcock. It is the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. Where did the time go? My goodness gracious. Look, if you're not following me on Twitter, I ask that you would. It's at Andrew Gosser, AndrewGasser. There you will find out a link I just tweeted out, and it ties in perfectly to what Brother Drunk just messaged me on YouTube. He goes, regarding the Epstein stuff, the MAGA base is mad for two reasons. One, Trump administration promised transparency. Two, if one of us were on the list, we'd already be in prison. Two-tiered judicial system. Junk, what you're saying is not wrong. This is a two-tier justice system. It's the political class against the rest of us. But if you look at what the Wall Street Journal just published, and they've got this all hyperlinked, and I haven't had a chance to go through all the hyperlinks yet because it's literally just bounced through my feed. But I want to read it. Epstein's private calendar reveals prominent names, including CIA chief at Goldman's top lawyer. Link number 2, Epstein's calendar, part 2, dinners with Larry Summers, movies with Woody Allen. Jeffrey Epstein appeared to threaten Bill Gates over Microsoft co-founder's affair with Russian bridge player. Jeffrey Epstein ties to J.P. Morgan were deeper than the bank has acknowledged. How Jeffrey Epstein tried to tap into Trump's circle before the 2016 election. That's linked on. I mean, this stuff is coming out, but it's just not coming out the way that we want it. And I hear you, people, when you're saying you want your pound of flesh, man. You're demanding it, and what I want to do is I want you all to keep going down the road you're going. I just don't want you to be offended. I don't want you to have offense. I want you to have righteous anger and go out there and do it that way. Because if you do, that's going to make you so much more powerful and have so much more influence, which is what the whole goal of this show is. One, I do it to honor and glorify God, but two, I want to equip the saints, man. I want you all to be equipped so that when you go out there, you can go out there and have those debates, those arguments, and you're on sound, firm ground. You're on good footing, and you win because everybody wants to be a winner. It pays to be a winner. If you know, you know. I want to thank everybody who texted me today, especially some of the more spicy texts. I do read them. I can't necessarily always read them on the air, but I do read them offline. I've got to figure out a way to be able to say that without cursing sometimes. And we'll get there. We'll get there. Hopefully you'll get there too. I also want to say thanks to everybody at Small Group. You played a big part in today's show prep. We'll do it all again next Monday night, and we'll do it all again in roughly 22 hours. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. Until next time, take care. Peace.